let's check in. I feel like you're on your astrology journey. You know your big three, you know your planetary placements, you know the houses of your chart and what they mean. But you feel a little stuck as it pertains to understanding the aspects in your chart and how these planetary placements are interacting with each other. Yeah, I think that that is a very normative place to be. So let's talk about aspects and how these planets are interacting with each other to create a holistic picture of your charts. Oh, hi. It is your friendo, the lady Ms. Vagina Jenkins, black, queer, autistic astrologer for the people. And yeah, this video is absolutely going to be about aspects and how the planets interact with each other in any given chart. The idea for this video partially comes from a comment from subscriber Young Thickums, which, what an amazing name. Chef's kiss, 10 out of 10, no notes. I was soliciting suggestions for future YouTube videos. So I was looking for content suggestion ideas in which my values shine more transparently. Because it is really important to me that astrology is not only a healing modality for the individual, so that's why I talk a lot about how to access your natal chart, but also I think that astrology can be useful for healing in terms of the culture and our communities. And I want to be a part of that healing. Anywho, a couple folks came through with some really good suggestions. I'm still considering them and whether or not I would like to pursue them. And so that's where the context for this comment. Young Thickums says, I love seeing your posts from the community tab to videos to live streams. I am here for whatever is being posted. I would, however, like to see some more astrology analysis. Could we get an autism and astrology series? Maybe it's not necessarily about the placements, but about the aspects. And yes, I hear you, more astrology analysis. I don't think that I will pursue the autism and astrology series though. It feels complicated. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that I got your comment, I considered it, and I'm keeping it under consideration. But the part about the analysis, yes. And I've got some great ideas about that in terms of analyzing the chart of Black and Indigenous activist ancestors through the lens of looking at their charts as a way to venerate and uplift them. Yes to that. And in order to do that, I want to start with aspects and understanding the way that planets interact with each other in any given chart. In this conversation about astrology aspects, I want to look at aspects through three kinds of lenses. One, I want us to understand the vibe. Two, I want us to understand the astrology. And three, I want us to understand the math. So 3 different ways of learning astrology aspect patterns. In order to talk about those 3 things, the vibe, the astrology, the math of it, I've got some visual aids. Everyone loves a good visual aid. And so yeah, this is where I'm gonna turn it over to looking at things on my computer.
Right. So we have our handy dandy visual aids. Hopefully they are helpful and not harmful. We shall see. Comment below. So yeah, each one of those planetary placements in your chart, yes, you understand the energy of what Saturn is like and what the moon is like, but they could also be classified according to what element you find them in or what mode you find them in. You could also use gender to understand the planets and how they show up in your chart. That's not my particular jam as a non binary person, but to each their own. But yeah, you could find any of your planetary placements in any of the 4 following elements: fire, air, earth, water. They're usually color coded in a number of astrology charts, with fire being red, air being yellow, earth being green, water being blue. And generally speaking, this is like just to understand just a general picture. Each one of these elements have lots of nuance to them, but briefly I would say that fire energy is more passionate, more driven, sort of energy. And so if I were to say what the vibe of a fire placement would be like, I would say that it was like a dance party, a really happening loud raucous dance party, right? When I think about air as an element and any placement that might show up in an air sign. Oh, let me go back. The fire signs are Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. So if you have like Jupiter in Sagittarius, that is Jupiter and a fire placement, for example. You could also say uh, the planets might show up in air signs. And so when I think about air, I think about the idea of ideas, communications, how we use our ideas to connect with each other and conversations and that kind of thing. And so if I were to say what kind of vibe it would be a fun karaoke party, like still quite upbeat, but much more room for conversation, connection, that kind of thing. When I think about Earth, I definitely think about like mastering the energy of this physical plane. I think about groundedness. I think about experiences that I can experience with my five senses, you know, taste, smell, sight, touch, that kind of thing. Um, and I think of it as the vibe of like a cozy dinner party. The air signs, I forgot to say this, the air signs are Libra, Gemini, Aquarius, and the earth signs that are in that cozy dinner party are Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo. And then we come to water kind of energy. When I think about water energy, I think about the energy of connection via feeling, connection via intuition, spiritual sort of qualities. And if I were to name it as a particular vibe, a type of party, I would say this is more of a cuddle party. Nice, soft, demure, cutesy kind of vibe, right? So that's one way to understand all of your planetary placements. So a Jupiter in Pisces is going to be much different from a Jupiter in Aries, for example. So that's one way to understand any of those planetary placements that show up in your chart. Another way is via the modes. And the modes are the idea that, you know, one type of energy would be starter kind of energy, the boss kind of energy. And so if we're talking about a party, then cardinal signs would be the host, the person that came up with it, the person whose house it's at, the public face of the party, right? Fixed signs or fixed energy, I think of as the energy of the person who is committed and loyal to seeing a thing through to the end. And so I'm saying that if this is a party, fixed energy is the partier, the person that has that looking been looking forward to this party all week, that might even stay until the last minutes of the party and shut the party down. You know. And then the mutable signs are more about transitions, about adaptability, about going with the flow. So I'm calling that particular type of party attendant the viber. Yeah, I might show up if I feel like it. Oh, I came and I didn't really like the vibe. Or yeah, I came and I partied, but probably going to be the first one to go because I can sense that the vibe has changed and now we're going to the end of the party and I'm trying to go home or I'm trying to experience a different party, that kind of thing. So I'm calling that energy the viber. There are four of each. So the cardinal signs are, you know, the starters, the host, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. The fixed signs, the partier that is loyal and committed to the party is going to see that thing through and shut it down at the end of the night. Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. And then the mutable signs, the vibers, that is Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. That's one way to understand any of your planetary placements. For example, let's go with the idea of the moon in Taurus. That means that the moon is an earth sign and it is in a fixed earth sign. So this is going to be the vibe of a dinner party, very much a sensual experience. This is going to be the vibe of being fixed. I'm committed and loyal to the idea of this party or whatever it is represented by the planet. So in this case, the moon. This is a fixed emotional state, very comfortable with like physical experiences. So that's one way that you might want to look at your chart, making a list of all of your planetary placements and writing down, hey, this one's in a fire sign, this is in a cardinal sign, so that we can get to the next step of really, really looking at the aspects. But I wanted you to have this framework as a place to like look at the aspects from an astrological perspective. So I'm going to go through each one of the major aspects. I would say that there are six major astrology aspects, three positive, three challenging. Um, and I say challenging in quote marks because it really depends on the planetary placements. That's what I'm talking about with all of these aspects is like, where are the places that we find commonality and we can find some way of working together versus where there are places where there is no commonality and we can't figure out a way to work with each other. And what does that mean in terms of the ease or tension that is created between these planetary aspects? All right. So the first aspect that I want to look at and I want us to understand in a astrology sense, in a vibe sense, and in a mathematical sense is the conjunction. This is the first of three positive aspects. So the conjunction is basically two planets blending their energy because they're sitting directly next to each other like besties, you know? In terms of the astrology of it all, they are most often in the same mode and in the same element because they're sitting right next to each other, right? With some exceptions, we're not going to get into those exceptions right now just because I want you to understand the basics of this concept. But yeah, they are sitting next to each other, blending their energies. The vibe of it all is as if they were interested in the same party and having the same role at that party. So, yes, we are going to host a dance party together. Or, yes, so we are going to attend a dance party together and we're going to be the people on the dance floor all night long. We're going to shut down the dance floor. That kind of energy is what is sort of represented by a conjunction. In terms of the math of it all, because they're sitting directly next to each other and blending their energies, a conjunction, I would say, is anywhere between 0 to 10 degrees of separation. So one planet could be at like 6 degrees, the other one could be as far out as 16 degrees. Um, or the other way, imagine a planet sitting at 1 degree of Pisces, and then another planet blending its energy sitting at 28 degrees of Aquarius. In that case, they would not have the same mode and element, but for the most part, we're going to say that these are in the same sign, same house, that kind of thing. So yeah, they're blending their energies in terms of the math. If you were to take each planetary placement and draw a line from the planetary placement to the center of this 360-degree circle, you would create a slice of pie that was really, really small because it's max 10 degrees wide. So this is 10 degrees of the 360-degree circle, max. You know, you might find a conjunction that is only 1 degree's worth of separation. So that pie slice would be even more narrow. But yeah, this is what a conjunction will look like in your chart in terms of what it feels like astrologically. This is besties combining their energy, which could be for the positive or the negative. Like, what if Mars and Venus combined their energy and what you wanted to pursue and what you were able to attract were on the exact same page? That would be exciting. But it could also be negative. I am a person who has a Saturn and Moon conjunction. Saturn limits things, Moon wants to feel things. So, limiting The emotional range could be a particular outcome of that. So yeah, yes, these planets are blending their energy and they're on the same mode, they're on the same element, they're on the same page, but it depends on the planets to determine whether this is a positive or a challenging aspect, I'll say. So yeah, let's look at the next one. So the next aspect I want to talk about is the trine. Let's start with the math of it all. Trine, three of something. So we could make three pie slices of this 360-degree circle. Three divided by, no, 360 divided by three is 120. That's how I got that number there. So yeah, each slice of the pie would be 120 degrees. These are planets that are sitting 120 degrees from each other. They consider it a positive aspect, so this is why there's a thick blue line connecting them. And what you will see on a chart is the thick blue line. You won't see this dotted line that is the pie slice. But I wanted to draw it in there so you understand the math of it all. Some people are going to be able to look at a chart and identify the aspects because of the lines, because of the pie shapes, or understanding, oh, that looks like that purple dot is about 120 degrees from this purple dot. Some people are going to need to look at it and understand the modes and the elements. So that's why I'm presenting it in these three different ways. So yeah, that's the math of it. It's two planetary placements 120 degrees from each other, dividing the 360-degree circle into three sections, trine. What the deal is astrologically is that they are going to be in the same element. They're both going to be fire signs, they're both going to be water signs, both air signs, both earth signs, but they will be in different modes. So if it's both fire signs, one could be fixed and the other one could be uh, cardinal fire sign, right? And so, in terms of the vibe, yes, we want to make a party together. We are two planetary placements that want to make a dance party. They're both fire signs, but each one will have a different role. One will be the host of the party, the other one will be the vibe of the party. Like, yeah, I absolutely see that this party is going downhill and I'm leaving, or I can improve it. But we are both somehow involved in a dance party. So that is the kind of vibe energy because they are in the same element, and they're trying to make the same party together. This is considered a positive aspect, a supportive aspect because we're on the same page in terms of the element or the type of party that we want to make. Um, yeah, I think that's everything that I want to say about the vibe of what the trine is like. Yeah, just generally speaking, it's considered a positive aspect. But again, take that with a grain of salt, because what if you had two planets that really shouldn't be connected, being connected? What if it was Jupiter and Saturn in a supportive relationship with each other? Jupiter wanting to expand things, Saturn wanting to constrict things. So, yeah, technically it's in a trine relationship that's supposed to be positive, but those are kind of opposite things. But generally speaking, a trine is a more supportive aspect because we're on the same page in terms of the type of party that we would like to create together. We're just going to have different roles in creating that party. So that is the trine. Let's look at the next one. So the next kind of positive aspect that I want to look at is the sextile. So this is planets that are basically half of a trine. The math part of it, this is a 360-degree circle. This planet connects to the center of the circle. This planet connects to the center of the circle. And they create a slice of pie that is 60 degrees apart, give or take a couple degrees. I think up to 5 is the leeway that is given in terms of a sextile. But yeah, they are creating a slice of pie that's about 60 degrees or 1/6 thus the sex part of the sextile. 1/6 of this 360-degree circle, that is a sextile relationship between two planets. It's considered a positive aspect, and so you've got this thick blue line. And yeah, once again, in a chart, you would not see these dotted lines. You wouldn't see the pie slices being created, but you would see this thick blue line denoting a positive sextile between two planets. So, here's the thing about sextiles. In terms of the astrology of them, they are in different modes. So one could be cardinal, the other one could be fixed. And they are in different elements, but at least those elements are compatible. Now, going back to the example of fire, air, earth, water being different types of parties, this is where we see the sort of compatibility of the elements unfold. So fire and air are compatible, and earth and water are compatible. So fire being a dance party, air being a karaoke party. Yeah, you could have a karaoke party or karaoke sections of a dance party. That those things would go together. Earth and water are compatible. Yeah, you could absolutely have a cuddle party after a nice dinner party experience. Those things could go together. So those are compatible kinds of elements, or what compatible elements can feel like in terms of the vibe. So they would be a different party role. One would be the host, one could be like the person who's committed to seeing the party through to the very end. Like, yes, I'm going to be the first one cuddling, and I'm going to be the last one to leave your house in the morning. Um, but they're different but compatible sorts of parties. So that's the last of the positive elements. We talked about a conjunction being positive. We talked about a trine being positive. We talked about a sextile being positive. And these are just the major aspects, not all of the possible aspects that exist. Now let's look at the more challenging aspects. The challenging aspects will be represented by red lines. And so this is the first challenging aspect. It's called an opposition. In terms of the math of it, it is two planets that are directly opposite of each other, give or take that sort of 5-degree leeway. And they are dividing up the 360-degree circle directly in half. So 180 degrees on each side. They are creating two pie slices. Each one is 180 degrees, give or take, 5 degrees or so. They will be in the same mode. They'll both be fixed signs, both be cardinal signs. They would both be the party host, or both be the viber or the party goer, right? But they're going to be, once again, in different but still compatible elements. Another way to think of the opposition is as sister signs, two sides of the same coin. So this is kind of like, this could be an example, could be the relationship between Pisces and Virgo, both mutable signs, but they're in different elements. Virgo is earth, Pisces is water. These elements are different, but they are still compatible, earth and water going together. Or another example could be the sister signs Aries and Libra, both cardinal signs. Aries is fire, Libra is air, different elements, but they're compatible elements. And so, what this looks like in terms of the party metaphor and the vibe of the thing is that they would still have the same party role, but it would be different parties. So I'm vibe checking, but I'm more interested in going to a dinner party, Virgo. Yes, I'm also vibe checking, but I'm more interested in being at a cuddle party. Or with the example of Aries and Libra. Yes, we are committed to hosting a party together. Okay, Aries, I want to host a dance party. Libra wants to host a karaoke party. How do we find the balance and put these two ideas together? In terms of working with an opposition and understanding it in your chart, I think the biggest thing is trying to find the balance because this is very much like the energy of a seesaw. It's a straight line. There's some place in the middle, there's some equilibrium that could be found that might be a way to strategize working with the opposition. So this is the a representation of the square aspect. Once again, you wouldn't see the dotted lines, like this is the planet A and a line to the center of this 360-degree circle, planet B and a line to the center of the circle. I wanted to show those dotted lines because I wanted to show you the shapes that are being made, and this is a kind of square or 90-degree angle. But what you would actually see on a chart is just this red line. Red denoting that it's a challenging aspect. And yeah, you'll get a sense that, oh, these look like they are 90 degrees from each other. In terms of what the astrology of it is, they are in the same mode, so they would both be fixed signs, both be cardinal signs, both be mutable signs, but they would be in different incompatible elements. So this is the vibe of yes, we both want to host a party, and one being like, yes, I want to host a dinner party, and the other one being like, I want to host a dance party. How do we make that work? um, it's challenging in that it's a sense of tension that needs to be resolved in some kind of way. It's a sense of tension that you can't necessarily resolve by finding a place in the middle. Like, I don't know that you can find a place that is a dinner party combined with a dance party. In terms of working with the square, sometimes what I think about this is what is it like to feel the tension and what is it like to allow one side greater leeway sometimes and then allowing the other side of the square greater leeway sometimes. Like, I don't think that there's necessarily we can combine forces and create a dinner dance party. But sometimes it can be a dinner party. Sometimes it can be a dance party, and understanding that nobody, not everybody gets what they want all of the time. The last thing that I'll say about the incompatible elements piece, so this would be the combination of fire with water and earth with air. Those are the incompatible elements. So, this is the last aspect that I want to cover. And it's one that a lot of astrologers or astrology websites consider to be a minor aspect. And so it's not often talked about. But it's actually one of my favorite aspects because it creates one of my favorite aspect patterns called the yod. But yeah, this is the quincunx, a challenging uh, planetary aspect made up of two planets that are 150 degrees apart from each other, also known as the inconjunct. So, if you will recall, an opposition is 180 degrees from each other. So, that would be dividing the circle exactly in half. This does not divide the circle exactly in half, it's almost half. And so, once again, you won't see this dotted line of this pie slice that is 150 degrees wide. But you will see a dotted line that is usually some color that is not red or blue. Um, my favorite website uses green. I saw another website use a gray dotted line. But either way, because it's considered a minor aspect, it's often a dotted line of some sort. And yeah, this is two planets that are 150 degrees away from each other in terms of the astrology. They are in a different mode and in different elements that are also incompatible. It is the worst case scenario of all of the challenging aspects. In terms of the vibe, yes, it is a different party role. One of them might be fixed and the other one is mutable. So one wants to be committed to seeing a party all the way through the end. The other one's like, I don't know, I'll check it out, see how the vibe is, how I feel. It's also in different incompatible elements. So one might be fire and then the other water. Like these elements don't even get along. There is no place of commonality. And that's what I'm talking about with all of these aspects is like, where are the places that we find commonality and we can find some way of working together versus where there are places where there is no commonality and we can't figure out a way to work with each other. And what does that mean in terms of the ease or tension that is created between these planetary aspects? So, yeah, this is different modes, different elements that are incompatible with each other. So, this is the, I want to be a host, I want to be a person that vibes. I want to have a dinner party and I want to have a big rager dance party. Like these things are completely incompatible. And in terms of strategizing, like how you might work with such an aspect, how do you work with the quincunx? Um, like I said, it's one of my favorite aspects because it is a place where you get the opportunity to experience tension, to notice the tension, hold it in your body, hold it in your experience, and understand that there is no commonality, that there is no common ground that can be found. And then how do you hold that tension? And what does it, what kind of action, what kind of what can you do with that tension? Um, I often think about the example, there's a different aspect for this, but like of like pulling a bow and arrow, you have to pull that bow back really, really hard and create some tension in order to launch yourself forward. And yeah, that's even though it's challenging and tension is really, really difficult to hold, in what ways can we launch ourselves forward in our healing when we allow tension to exist and honor those tensions? And that's why I think that the quincunx is a really special and important aspect, even though it's not talked about very much. So, yeah. Um, those are the 6 aspects. I want to show you some charts or a chart so that we can talk about another little facet that you might want to look into. Oh, hey, y'all. Coming to you the next day, apparently, there was a technical snafu with my footage because we are still very much in the Mercury retrograde shadow period. So anywho, I wanted to talk to you about the difference between aspects that are applying and aspects that are separating. Applying aspects are kind of, well, they're technically speaking, astrologically speaking, they are the aspect that is about to happen, about to become exact. It is a place of sort of anticipating a new beginning kind of energy. It can also have the feeling, in terms of the more challenging aspects of creating a sense of tension or a greater sense of tension. And so, yeah, that's the applying aspect in astrology. And then there's also the idea of the separating aspect, an aspect that was exact and is now moving away from that point. So, in terms of challenging aspects, the tension might be dissipating, or in terms of positive aspects, the event that happened is the energy is now just sort of releasing, and the event has already happened. And so, yeah, I want to be able to share with you how you can tell if any particular aspect is applying or if it's separating. So I have the chart for today's, I'm recording this on September 2nd. And this is the chart for today's new moon in Virgo. I'm going to make it larger if possible. Let's see. I do recognize that it's a little small. Um, and so the new moon is exact at 6:56 my time, Pacific time. Of course, your time may vary. Yes, I think that's as big as I can get that. And let's look at the moment of the new moon and see if there are any aspects to it. So here is the moon exactly conjunct the sun at 11 degrees, 4 minutes. And when the moon is exactly conjunct the sun, that is what we refer to as a new moon or the time of the new moon. Um, and I see that, and this, you'll see this short little blue line between those little planetary aspects, and that's representing that conjunction, that mixing of energies. And if you look really, really closely, you'll see this little teeny slice of pie that's been created to reflect that connection, that conjunction. So that's one aspect that we already talked about. Um, and then I see this thick, heavy red line that is pointing to Saturn retrograde. That's what that little R is in Pisces. And so they are directly across from each other. This is representing an opposition. You can note that, yes, the new moon is at 11 degrees of Pisces, and this opposition to Saturn is at 16 degrees. So it's not exact, but it is within that 5 degrees of leeway that we talked about, right? Okay. So, how can I tell if this aspect is applying? It's referencing an event that is about to go exact, or if it's separating, referencing an event that has already happened. Well, one clue is that to be exact, these would both need to be at the same number. They would both need to be at 16 degrees or both at 11 degrees. That is not the case, but we know that the sun and moon are moving towards that direction. Tomorrow the sun will be at 12 degrees, the moon will have moved on. But yeah, it is moving in that direction. So that's one clue that we can know that this is an applying aspect, in that half of the planetary placements that are involved in the aspect are moving towards being exact at 16 degrees. The other thing that I would say in terms of assessing whether an aspect is applying or separating is looking to the fastest moving planet in the aspects that are being created. And so in this case, that is the moon. The moon changes sign every 2.5 days or so. Second place amongst all of these aspects would be the sun. And we know that the sun stays in one sign for about a month, about 30 days or so. And then the slowest moving planet in this aspect is Saturn. Saturn stays in one sign for about 2.5 years, right? So the fastest moving planet is definitely moving towards 16 degrees of Virgo. So that's another way that I know that this is an applying aspect. And the third way that I can know if this is an applying aspect is by using a website like this is a astro-seek.com. And I like it because it's got these little buttons where you can advance and rewind the chart. So I'm going to advance the chart by, let's do 6 hours and see where the moon ends up. If it goes towards, actually, I'm going to do 3 hours. If this moon is moving towards 16 degrees so that it can be exactly opposite of Saturn, let's see what happens when I advance the chart 3 hours. And now the moon is at 12 degrees. Yep, it's getting closer to 16. I'm going to advance it 3 more hours. And now the moon is at 14 degrees. So yeah, we can both see how quickly the moon is moving. The moon is moving away from the sun. That's also a separating aspect. It was exactly conjunct at 11 degrees, and now it's separating. It's an event that has already happened. It's a tension that could be easing, that kind of thing. So, yeah, this is a separating aspect from the sun, and it is still applying to Saturn. So it's not quite at 16 degrees yet. This is still anticipating, still building energy, still like the event is yet to come kind of vibes. I'm going to keep advancing 3 hours and see what happens. Moon is now at 15 degrees, almost exactly opposite 16. keep going. Moon is now at 17 degrees. We just passed the exact point. So we just passed the exact point that the moon would be exactly opposite of Saturn. And so now this aspect is separating. So up until it hit 16 degrees, it was applying, waiting for the exact the event of the exact opposition at 16 degrees to Saturn. And now that it's at 17, it is a separating aspect. The energy is dissipating. And I want you to note this thick red line that's in the middle here and how it changes to reflect how the aspect pattern is changing. So another 3 hours. Let's see how that line changes. The moon's now at 18 degrees, and this line, this red line, is not a thick red line anymore. So that's another intuitive way to understand, oh, okay, this is energy that is not exact in some kind of way. You'll still need to rewind or advance the chart to understand what happened. Were they moving closer or further away from each other? But yeah, this energy is definitely dissipating now that the moon is at 18 degrees. Saturn is still at 16 degrees, and it will be for quite some time. And how could this be applicable to any chart that you are looking at? You could look at any particular aspect, any interaction between two or more planets, and you could know whether they were applying or separating, and that would give you some indication about the strength of that aspect and how it might be affecting that chart or you if you are looking at your natal chart. For example, looking at a natal chart and you were born at the time that the moon was squaring the sun, so a quarter moon, right? And yes, that is a place of tension. And yeah, you would know what kind of tension that was based on what signs, what elements, what modes were at play. But as far as the applying and separating of it all, you would know, yes, there was tension being applied to this aspect. We were looking forward to the exact moment where the sun was exactly square the moon. And how do I carry that tension in my body? How do I recognize and honor that tension? And then where can I allow? Remember, we talked about how a square, sometimes you have to allow one aspect to have the sunlight and the other aspect to have the sunlight, and you just allow them to have their own things at their own time. They're not, there's not necessarily a place of finding the balance. But yeah, you were anticipating the event of them being exact. Versus if it was a separating aspect, you would know, hey, yes, that was a lot of tension, but hey, at least we weren't born during the moment where that tension was exact at its zenith, at its strongest energy. Yes, these are things that are separating, things that are dissipating, and things that are becoming more easeful. Um, so yeah, that is the sort of applying, separating aspect of it all. I hope that helped. Yeah. At this point, you know six different types of aspects. You understand the vibe, the astrology, and the math of each one of those six types of aspects. And you can figure out if an aspect is applying, creating tension, or separating, easing tension. And so, an exercise that you could do is look at all your planetary placements. I have taken the liberty of creating a chart analysis table for you. And you can, anyone with the link, and I will put the link in the caption below, anyone with the link can make a copy of this and fill it out at your leisure if it helps you analyze your chart. But basically, what you have going on is in the one column, you've got all of the potential placements, and they are arranged, by the way, in order of fastest to slowest moving. So the moon changing signs every 2.5 days, Mercury 3 weeks, the sun 1 month, Venus 5 weeks, so forth and so on. And you can note what sign your moon is in. So, for example, Leo. You can note what element that is. It's a fire. What mode that is, fixed. If there are any aspects, and this is where you might need to right click and add another row or so or anything like that. If you have lots of aspects to your moon, but you could say it's square Venus and trine the north node. I don't know. And then you could look up each one of those. You could look up your chart in astro-seek.com, and I'll make sure that there are directions for this as well. And then you could advance your chart or rewind your chart by a day or two to see if this aspect is applying or separating. And that might help you in terms of your chart interpretation. So I'll make sure to put a link to this below if that is helpful. So, yeah, at this point, you should understand each one of the six aspects, the three positive, the three negatives. You should understand what commonalities they have and what differences they have. You should understand the kind of vibe that they bring to the table, as well as the math of each one of the aspects, and how to identify them in a circular natal chart. And the bonus part about understanding whether the aspect is applying, creating tension, or separating, easing tension. So, yeah, I hope this video helped. Let's go to the outro.
So, yeah, that's everything that I can share in this moment about understanding aspects a little bit more clearly. And I hope that helps you in your astrology journey as you are understanding your chart or how to read charts more generally speaking. If you have any questions, please, please, please comment below. I'm so open to talking about this and explaining it more clearly because I think that this can be a place where people feel a little stuck, and I want to provide some clarity in conversation with you about this. So yes, that is the video. If you would like to support my capacity to continue making videos like this, please consider becoming a member of this channel. A membership in this channel starts at $3.99 a month. You get really cool perks like loyalty badges, custom emojis. You get to see content well before other people see it publicly. And it's a really great way to support your local Black queer autistic astrologer. If supporting on a monthly basis in that way feels like a little bit of a financial stretch for you, totally understand. Please instead consider doing a tip via the thanks button below. And if finances are a little tight and neither of those options feel doable, please consider just supporting this channel by commenting, by liking, and by sharing my content to your peoples. Help me get to that 1,000 subscriber monetization mark so I can begin to monetize my content here on YouTube. Thank you for having my back. Thank you for supporting my life and livelihood. And of course, thank you as always for making time for queer astrology. Bye.